Welcome, everybody. I'm so excited to see you. This is our first ever Arts and Talks Book Talk Thursdays. Book Talk Thursdays is a collaboration between Arts and Talks and Senior Connections at JCCMW. I know that this is a very different format for us, but I think we can handle it, and I think it's going to be terrific. Arts and Talks is bringing world-class arts and culture to Westchester. And now, of course, while we can't travel, we're trying to stay connected and keep engaged with all of you through our virtual programs, including dance and fitness programs, book talks. We're going to try to do some films and other conversations, and really try to stay engaged with you while we're closed. We're physically closed, but we really still want to be in touch with you. You know, these are very difficult times for everyone, and all nonprofits are suffering. And so we are doing our best to bring you as much as we can while we are closed. I just want to say that we have a lot of exciting programs coming up, films, book talks, all sorts of exciting concerts and comedy nights and things like that, which we are looking forward to doing in the summer and in the fall. So just a few housekeeping things. You're all on mute. For those of you who are not familiar, you can choose gallery view so that you can see everybody. And there are a number of pages of people, so you can see more and more faces. If you have questions or comments for myself or for Barbara, please look into there's a button called the chat button, and you can chat either to the entire group, everyone, or to a specific person. It's sometimes a little distracting, so let's keep our questions mostly for Barbara. And that's it, I think, as far as technology goes. Bear with us. I'm hoping that this is going to be a huge success and that we can do it again. So without further ado, please help me welcome Barbara Josselsohn. Barbara is the author of 2 novels, The Lilac House, which we're going to be speaking about today, and The Last Dreamer, a wonderful book from 2015. Barbara's articles and essays appear in a range of publications, including New York Magazine, Parents Magazine, the New York Times, Westchester Magazine, WorkingMother.com, and NextAvenue.com. Barbara teaches writing at Sarah Lawrence College Writing Institute, the Scarsdale Library, and she also does it privately. And she's an instructor at JCCMW's Summer Arts Center camp, which is a fantastic camp we run at our JCC. And Barbara is no stranger to Arts and Talks. She served as our moderator for our last Ladies Who Lit local authors panel in October, and she was wonderful at it. Barbara is also the founder and coordinator of the Scarsdale Library Writers Center, which she supports, and she also helps to promote local writers. She and her husband live locally. They have 3 adult children, a Shih-Poo named Mosley, and she is currently at work on her 3rd novel, very exciting, which is scheduled for release this fall. So without further ado, please help us welcome Barbara, who's going to give a bit of a presentation and then answer some pre-recorded questions, which we did, and we'll take it from there. So welcome, Barbara.
Oh, hi. Wow, this is quite a format. Thank you so much. I know what's going on these days and how stressed and busy everyone is, and I really appreciate what everybody's going through, and I really appreciate that you're all here this morning. I was so excited to be invited here because the JCC was actually a huge inspiration for my new book, and people and the programs there were all in my head as I was putting the book together. So I can show you that this is the cover of The Lilac House. This was just launched about a week and a half ago. So I want to talk a little bit about what it's about, and then what some of the inspirations were. I write about marriage, I write about families, I write about relationships, I write about women. I like to think about the kinds of bargains and trade-offs, the decisions and choices that we make in our lives, and how sometimes we have to kind of reinvent ourselves or switch gears or reimagine what the future would be at various crossroads. So my heroine in the Lilac House, her name is Anna Harris, and she's at a crossroads. 9 months before the novel opens, she lost her husband, who was a popular state senator, local state senator, with aspirations of eventually being governor of New York, and looking like he was going to actually succeed in that. She lost him in a car crash, and the novel opens as she gets ready to return to the summer cottage that they bought when they were first married and have spent all their summers at, and it's called the Lilac House, and it's located in a fictional town in the Adirondacks known as Lake Summers. And she's going there, up there with her two children, with the thought that this will be the last time that they're going to close it up, say their goodbyes, and put the house on the market because it's just too painful to be there anymore. But the central problem for her is that she was a ballet dancer. She put that life behind her when she fell in love. She got married and spent most of her adult life in support of her husband's career and being, the wife of State Senator Greg Harris. And at this point in the book, she's needs to figure out who she is now when the person that she was and that she thought she'd be forever kind of no longer exists anymore. So that's kind of the problem that I was kind of dealing with, in terms of marriage. We make bargains, we give, we take, we compromise. And what happens when all those choices are suddenly taken away? And who do you become next? And so that's what she's dealing with. Up in Lake Summers, she has an aunt who owns a small dance shop on Main Street that she's going to help out with. And of course, being in the dance shop makes her start to remember the person she was before she got married, before she left the dance world behind. She's also concerned about her children. And she also meets this summer a man named Aiden, who is a widower. He's also grieving a loss, and he's also come to Lake Summers because he has to reinvent himself, although his complications are much different and actually a little more dangerous than hers. So over the course of the summer, we kind of watch her start to understand what her marriage is, to realize that maybe it wasn't exactly the fairy tale marriage she thought she had, and make a plan to move on. So that's the overall story of the. So it's about one transformational summer in her life, in the life of her children. Now, what I wanted to also talk about was that the Lilac House, the word lilac and the thought of lilacs comes up a lot. The name of the shop that her aunt owns is called the Lilac Point with an E on the end, like point shoes. And a lot of the story revolves around I think is one of the most beautiful ballets in the world, which is the Lilac Variation from the Sleeping Beauty. And there are a number of beautiful performances of that I will post on my Facebook. I'll post it wouldn't be kind of possible to do it now, but it's a beautiful, beautiful dance. It's, all of 1.5 minutes. It's a short solo in the course of the ballet. But the ballet is especially meaningful to me because my daughter, Alyssa, who is now 21, was put together an audition tape when she was applying to college, and she found the Lilac Variation, and that's the dance that she wanted to do. So I remember sitting at the JCC in the dance studio watching the wonderful Jane Santoro teaching my daughter this dance, and it's a beautiful dance, and it's the juxtaposition of seeing it professionally performed on some of the YouTube, Paris Opera Ballet, and then seeing my daughter in the rehearsal studio is really it gives me chills. And we heard the music over and over again. And one of the hallmarks of this dance is that there are as with many ballets, there are many repeating steps. There are patterns that go, that repeat. And was interesting about, I think that this solo in particular has a lot of repeating patterns relatively. And one of the central discussions in the book is when the dancer is repeating the patterns, how is she doing it each time? Is she getting better, or is she just doing it differently? And that becomes a kind of a discussion between characters, where some characters say, no, the point of the dance is that each time you repeat the step, it gets better, bigger, grander. And the other side is, no, it just gets different, but it's not qualitatively better. And this kind of becomes a metaphor for life. You know, maybe you can't live your life better all the time, but maybe you could just try to live it a little differently. Maybe the second time or the third time you reinvent yourself, it's not better, but it's different. And does that mean it's worse? So this is kind of some of the themes that the dance kind of that inspires. We also talk a lot about dance. At one point, which was a big, I mean, I grew up as a dancer, and it was really wonderful watching my two daughters dancing at the JCC, and then one who really, went through the whole JCC program. And it was, I was a little bit of a dance mom, I guess, at some point. But what they also talk about, also in terms of dance, is that at one point she talks about why she loves dance and why she always loved to dance. And she kind of explains it this way, which I think is the kind of thought that Jane put into my daughters and also into me as I studied dance with her also as an adult. And what the character talks about, which was, filtering through me, is that dance, dance is it's hard. Ballet is hard, and it's full of fear. You're especially when you're on your point shoes, you're kind of scared of the pain of on your toes, and you're scared of falling, and you're scared of looking foolish maybe, or not being able to get it, or feeling bad about yourself. There's just all this kind of emotion wrapped up in doing a dance step. But then what she says is, then one day you get it, and you're there, and you're on your point shoes, and you're in a pose, and it's magic. And time stands still, and all you are is a piece of shimmering white energy, in time and space, and your past and your future, and you just don't want that moment to end. And that's the moment that a ballerina goes for and longs for. And I guess that's kind of the moments we also long for in life. So there was a lot of lessons from dance, I guess, that I try to incorporate into the philosophy of life and a theory of life moving forward. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that for those of you who live locally, the dance store that I have in my head was modeled on Repertoire, which is a beautiful dance store on Garth Road that outfitted my girls and so many other people. And it's just the most magical place. You walk in there and, there's just these baskets full of, wonderful, beautiful shoes and leotards and tights, and everything's, so colorful. And then there's the jewelry counter, and there's the picture frames and the keychains and the posters. And it's just, and when you go in there, you talk dance, you talk dance. That's the language you talk. You talk about, on point shoes, you talk about shanks and boxes and, soft or hard, and ribbons, and, and gel pads, and all kinds of, there's just a language that people speak, and it's really magical. And my heart breaks because Renee, who owns this shop, closed it, like everything else is closed, right the same week that I was about to give her the book and thank her for being such an incredible inspiration. And so I she left we purchased a couple of things. She left them outside, as we've all been doing. We left the book outside for her, and it's just so sad. I'm so sorry that, and I hope like she and all the other small retailers in town open, but that's such a magical place. And it was really wonderful that that I could be inspired by art and by dance. And I could go on and on, but I guess if anybody has questions, you can either type them or Stephanie, I don't know how you want to.
Hi, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Great. So I have some questions that we had talked about, and then we can ask everyone if they want to type in some questions. I think something that might be on everybody's mind is, what is it like to be a writer whose book came out a week and a half ago? You're supposed to be on a book tour, you're supposed to be doing things, and how is that affecting? And also, you have a book that's supposed to be released this fall. How does that impact? I mean, I know it's impacting everyone's life, but specifically as a writer with a new book out, how is that working for you?
You know, I mean, I have a lot of mixed emotions about it because, you know, obviously worrying about my big book tour, my canceled book tour is kind of beside the point in the midst of all the horror and sadness and illness that's going on. You know, in the grand scheme of things, it really, you know, it's hard to think it matters very much. But on the other hand, it's a very strange experience to launch or to do anything big. I mean, I know people are planning weddings or bar mitzvahs, and you know, you have something that you've been planning for so many months, even years, and you know, it's just you know, it's and watching the you know, just one by one, you see all the events start to get canceled. But on the plus side, there have been you know, opportunities and invitations from the JCC and my, you know, Westchester Reform Temple, other places. A lot of bloggers are doing. Um, I've been able to appear on, which is really great because but I will say that you know, the book is doing actually well. It's kind of surprisingly well, and I think people feel that that people are, you know, that books actually may do pretty well these next couple of months because we are all home and there's just so much news you can watch. And, you know I've been really appreciating having a stack of books and a lot of books on my Kindle. And it's really nice to just sit and curl up and get lost in a book. And I've been told that this book, it is a kind of a, you know, it's not a downer of a book. It's an escapist kind of book, and it really can bring you to a new town and new people. And I think that, you know, that might be what a lot of people are looking for. And, you know, hopefully in some, you know, everything will be rescheduled later on. But, you know, it is what it is. But I've been really excited. I actually, you know, I just saw today that the book is, which I'm just shocked about actually, is just hit number 10 on, what is it, on women's literary fiction new releases, which is, you know, pretty, 10 of that
Congratulations.
it's pretty good. And thank you. And so, you know, so maybe it is like, you know, reaching people, you know, making a connection and reaching people. And yeah, so you know, it's been holding its own, more than holding its own actually. So I'm
Fantastic.
really
So we
pleased.
actually have a question from one of our other local authors who's been with us at Arts and Talks. And the question is, are you writing now? And do you have any tips on how to focus? And another question that came up, which maybe you can answer in the same go, is sort of, what is your writing process? And do you have an agent? What was your path to publication? Can you walk us through that a little bit?
Yeah, okay. It's really hard to focus right now, and I'm having a lot of trouble. I mean, the one, you know, I do have a May 1st deadline to get the next manuscript in, and as everybody knows in their various paths and work, you know, a deadline is an awesome motivator. So so I do have to get it done. It's really, but I do know it is really hard to focus. And you know, but it's hard to focus at a lot of various times. Writing is really hard, but I think you know, I think, you know, it's like, I think I see it as like there's a big hurdle, and once you get over the hurdle, then you're in the zone. And it's, you know, so I kind of sit and I discipline myself, and you know, I just start, and before I know it, I'm kind of zooming through. I also find, I know, we're all connecting, and it's just a very strange time. And, everybody's got suddenly everybody has a million Zoom meetings, and I do too. And I'm teaching a lot, and I'm also doing some journaling workshops. But so I find that my most productive times are really, I've been trying to get up at like 5:30 in the morning and really kind of just go at it until, 8. And that's a really productive time because there's not as much give and take. And and I also late night is also a good time to kind of work. So that's been helpful. It's a little quiet, the mood is a little bit, less hectic, I guess. And what was the what
The
was
other
the other?
question was sort of
Oh,
yeah, about your path to publication. Do you
right.
have an
Yeah, I
agent?
actually,
How did that work for you? And then we have some more specific questions about the book too, but let's just continue with the process for a second.
okay, yeah, sure. There's when I got I published my first book in 2015. I had written that book. I had spent 15 years writing that book. I mean, when I hear authors going like, "Oh my God, that book took me a year," I'm like, please, the first one took me 15. And because I was raising my family, I was working, I was just fitting in kind of 15-minute chunks. Now, there are many ways to get published, and even more ways and more wonderful ways than even were available to me back when I was looking for, to get published, which would have been, I guess, about 6 years ago. But I do have an agent. For me personally, I wasn't comfortable in my own skills as a self-published person. I didn't want to I just wanted to write, and I wanted a team, and I wanted somebody else whose job was to sell. And so I really devoted myself to an agent search. And so I must have, I must have queried to get an agent, at least to 100. I mean, I was really, it was endless. But what I think I also did, which I thought was really a good thing to do, was when I was getting a lot of no's, I would try to take the feedback, and so I did a lot of revising. And I also joined some classes. I was in a novel writing class at Sarah Lawrence. I did some private developmental editing. So once I really went out with the book and I sort of said, this is it, no more revising, I felt pretty comfortable. So I did get an agent. The interesting thing was, while the whole writing process and getting an agent took, a long, long time, things moved really fast after that. She sold the book within, I think, 6 or 7 months, and 9 months later it came out. So that whole process, once we got going, was kind of like, really speedy, which was, to be just pushing away and then see everything come together so quickly was really wonderful. My agent, the great thing about having an agent is, unless something happens, she's kind of your agent for life,
That's
unless
great.
he doesn't want to be there anymore. So she kind of sat with me and held my hand as I wrote the next book. What happened for me was that my publisher of my first book, I mean, my first book is a lot like this book, you would call it like contemporary women's fiction. And my publisher moved more into suspense and thrillers, because I guess that's where a lot of the market was going at that point. So I was no longer a good fit for that publisher. So my agent was the one who found my new publisher, who is very big in this genre. And we got a 2-book deal, which was really, really exciting. It's exciting until you actually have to write the second book. And then it's like, oh my God, what did I do to myself? But so that was my path toward publication. And I think that I'm really happy with my imprint. The second book is planned to come out late September, and I would be nothing but thrilled if I continued with this publisher,
Fantastic.
for whatever comes next.
Great. So we have a couple of questions regarding the Lilac House.
Mhm.
3 of your characters, thank you everyone for inputting questions. This is fantastic. Your 3 main characters all have important secrets that they must deal with. Do you
Yes.
think having secrets is part of human nature? And how did you come up with the secrets of your 3 characters? And another question someone had was, have you been to the Adirondacks a lot, and why did you choose that location for some of what happened.
Okay. The secret. I'm going to start with the second question. It's a little bit easier.
Okay.
I actually, the model for Lake Summers is Kennebunkport, Maine, where we spent every summer for, since I got married and the kids were little. And I actually visualize it. I mean, if you saw, a map of Kennebunkport and you made a map of Lake Summers, it would match up pretty well. Why did I put it in the Adirondacks? What happened was I had this wonderful state senator, Greg Harris, who wants to be governor of New York. And I thought that the last thing in the world this guy would do, who's very sympathetic and very involved in helping the people of his state, would be to go vacation in another state. So his vacation area had to be in New York State. And so, I kind of explored the map of New York and kind of decided where I wanted to place this. And I made it a lake instead of an ocean. He also, he went to Binghamton University, which is where my husband and I also went. But he would have gone to a New York State school. I just, I knew that he was a very big, enthusiast for New York. So that's why it's there. About the secrets. Let's see. A lot of the secret, the three characters do have big secrets, and part of storytelling is, part of the craft of telling a story is how you reveal and when you reveal, and usually the reader, there's lots of ways to do it, but the way I do it is the reader finds out the secret at the moment when the character is ready to confront whatever it is and make a change, ready to confront their vulnerability, how they've been deluding themselves, how they've been deceiving other people, how they've been deceiving themselves. So the revealing it, so the whole book is kind of a process for these characters of being put in a stressful situation. They're all touched by the death of this state senator. It's affected them all, deeply in different ways. And by processing it, they learn a lot about themselves. In some, they learn they learn a lot about themselves, but it all revolves around this one thing that they've each been exploring. And then that kind of happens at the climax point of the book. And then the rest of the book is kind of well, where do we go from here, and how do I understand myself and my relation to my world, now that I've faced the thing I probably never wanted to face. So for me, that's a lot of that fiction. When I teach, we talk a lot about how a piece of literature is a journey. It starts one place, it ends somewhere else. You travel through. It's like, I literally sometimes think of it as an actual roadmap where you start one place. Sometimes you make a couple of the wrong turns or detours, sometimes intentionally, sometimes not, but you end up someplace. And where do you start from? Maybe confusion and end up with clarity, or you start from, immaturity and you end up with wisdom. So, this is the path of a piece of literature for me, and for an essay, a memoir, and a story. And so for me, the secrets are part of this evolution of going from, believing your life is one way to being confronted with a crisis and having to completely come to a new understanding of who you are and where you belong. So that's
great. Barb, we have about 2 minutes left, and someone wrote a great question, and all the questions have been great, but here's another one, and then we're gonna wrap it up. When you give classes and advise other writers, do you ever have any aha moments of your own?
Yeah, I do all the time. I really do. It's and just one came last night when I was teaching in my Sarah Lawrence class. A lot of times it's because, you know what it is? Because when I teach adult workshops, everybody comes to the workshop, with just a different set of, I've got people who are from different countries, a lot of teachers, a lot of therapists, we have people who are from different different and just see things differently. So often, you know, somebody will make an observation about someone else's work, and you know, I'll see something. I mean, I can give you an example about a class the other night. Um, I don't want to give too, you know, it's a work in progress, but there was a tension between a woman and a man, and my bias was to support the woman. I was just automatically, as I was critiquing this piece, thinking, good for her for standing up for herself, good for her for saying no, you know, and this was how I came to it. And then somebody else came to it from a whole different perspective and kind of understood the man's point of view. And it wasn't even a man, it was a woman who understood the man's point of view and why he would want to feel the way he did, and how if we can enrich his point of view, the tension between them would be so much more interesting, because they were both kind of sympathetic. So I guess the point is that was really a lesson for me. I was kind of in making sure that I don't let just my, you know, whatever, you know, my own personal biases, you know, completely make me fail to see that things can be seen from the other side. I mean, I think that's all, you know, that's one of the things as writers, what we have to do, you know,
Fantastic.
other than maybe in a fairy tale or
Right.
something. Nothing's right, nothing's always right, nothing's always wrong, nothing's always good, nothing's always bad. What makes literature interesting is that everybody's a little right and everybody's a little wrong and everybody's a little vulnerable and everybody's a little everything, and we're all just trying to make our way through the world.
Thank you, Barbara. So I just want to give Barbara an opportunity to let you all know. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for coming. Barbara, you're amazing. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I hope to do this again, and then in a few more times, we'll all be together physically and in person. Barbara, just let us know how we can buy your book.
Yeah, thanks. I really appreciate it. So it's The Lilac House. I'll give you a couple of options. There's an audiobook, a paperback, and an ebook. It's available on Amazon, and actually the ebook at the moment is on promotion for 99 cents. So I'm not sure how long that's going to last. But also I think barnesandnoble.com has the ebook and the paperback, Kobo, Apple Play, you know, there's a lot of things. But I would also just let you know that independent bookstores can get it too. And even though they're closed, my own independent bookstore, where we were planning a really wonderful launch party that I will have at another time later in the year, hopefully, Bronx River Books, for those of you who are in Scarsdale, even though they're closed, they're taking orders online, and they'll mail you your book. So that's where I think a lot of people are trying to do, even if it's not that bookstore, it's, you know, all local books.
Local, support local is very important right now. And I do want to mention, there are some of you who are brand new to us. Please join our mailing list, jccmw.org. This is Arts and Talks, and we can just include you in our next emails and Facebook updates. And again, thank you all for coming. We look forward to seeing you in the future. Given the fact that we're not in person together, this has been really nice and made my day too. So thank you all so much.
So nice to
see you again soon. Thank you, Barbara.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everyone.